Temkin, and this is Showtime right here on Phantom Facebook's Sports Network. And I want to thank everybody for joining us as we broadcast live every single day with Showtime at noon Central, and then, incidentally, noon o'clock following this with TJ Carpenter at 1 Central. So make sure to join us for both of our live programs back-to-back right here on Phantom Facebook Sports Network. A thank you to our partners if you're checking out on those pages as well. Broadcasting live on the Silver and Blue Nation page. Chris Glover says hello. Mike Blizz Hibbert says go boys. Thanks to the Silver and Blue Nation for being a partner of ours. Also, the Dallas Prospect. Go check out those guys as well. Lots of great Dallas Cowboys content all over the Facebook landscape. So go check out all those great pages. Once again, I am Ari Temkin. Make sure to like the page. You can see us tagged at Phantom, facebook.com/Watch Phantom. And again, this is an interactive show. So it's all about your interactivity with the show. My dad's watching. Stephen Canto's watching. How's it going, guys? So post your comments. Join the show. Be a part of it. You drive the conversation. So make sure that you are participating to help us drive the conversation in whatever direction you would like us to be driving the conversation. All right. So I usually start every day with 3 things that I think And the first thing that I think is tonight, Game 3 of the NBA Finals. LeBron James, J.R. Smith, and the rest of the Cleveland Cavaliers are looking to avoid being swept. And certainly going down 3-0 in that series would indicate that that's potentially the fate of this series. The Warriors are 4-point favorites tonight in Cleveland. Normally the home team gets at least 3 points. So basically a 7-point spread. And, I think the bottom line in this series, the bottom line in the playoffs, as long as, we've seen Golden State dominate the way that they have, either you can play small ball and try to match them, and try and switch everything and, play that small ball style, or, I think that's important, or the other thing you can do is you have to have two-way players. And, I don't think this is new. I don't think this is a new aspect of the NBA, of the modern NBA, but, I think it's important to note, you have to have a lot of two-way players, and that's the best way to being most successful in the NBA playoffs is guys that can play on offense, can play on a high level on offense, a high level on defense, because in the playoffs, just as a whole, teams can get you in the pick and roll and expose weak defenders. So, if you can't, if you can't play both ways, you're going to be in big trouble in the postseason. And I don't think this is, necessarily just isolated to Golden State, because, good teams, the Boston Celtics, well-coached teams, the San Antonio Spurs over the years, they'll take advantage of that too. So, I just think more and more teams have been composed of John Dyer, Corey Cole in the house. What's going on, guys? I think more and more teams have been composed of, high offensive players without the ability to defend. Look at the Cavs. How many two-way players do the Cavs have? Look at their roster. They have very few. Rodney Hood, that was one of the guys, George Hill, and other ones guys they thought they brought in to take advantage of those guys' ability to play both ways. Kevin Love is not a two-way player, really. J.R. Smith is not a two-way player, really. Kyle Korver's not a two-way player. The problem is good teams will force bad two-way players off the floor, or guys that can't defend off the floor. And if you look at the team that matched up the best with Golden State so far in the playoffs, the most important common denominator is ability to play both ways. At Houston, had a lot of guys, interchangeable pieces that could play both offense and defense. So, I think the reason, quite frankly, that I picked this to be a sweep, the NBA Finals, and I didn't even pick it to be close, so Game 1 I was off. I thought it would all be blowouts and everybody would complain about it. Was because of that. Just not enough two-way players for Cleveland. And that's the thing with Golden State is you either have to have the firepower offensively to keep up with them, or you have to be able to defend them consistently and have enough guys on the floor that can play, both offense at a high level and defense at a high level. So, Cleveland doesn't have that. And Cleveland doesn't have the firepower to keep up. So they don't have, enough two-way players to limit Golden State's ability to score in the hundreds consistently. Remember, Houston held Golden State under 100 points twice in that series. No team has done that through the rest of the playoffs against Golden State. So, bottom line here is, Houston with their ability to defend, which is something you normally can't say about a Mike D'Antoni team, they've done that exceedingly well. They did that exceedingly well in the second round against them, or in the Western Conference Finals against them. And that's like, if we're looking for one, major takeaway, to me, that's what it is. It's, if you play that small ball style, which again, Houston can do that too. If you play that small ball style, and you can defend, and you got a lot of guys that can play both ways. Clint Capella, PJ Tucker. If you look at Houston, those kind of guys, you can get kind of far against Golden State. Which leads me to my ultimate point, which is I think the biggest story in this series is where LeBron James will end up. Since, again, I think this will be a sweep. But post your comments. What do you think? Will this finals end in a sweep? And where is LeBron going? I think, first and foremost, hola, amigo. How are you, Corey? Corey Cole in the house. What up, buddy? Let's see. Dallas Prospect, anything cooking? Silver and Blue Nation. Make sure to post your comments wherever you're watching. I want to thank everybody for watching. We'll get to some big stories in the Cowboys here momentarily. I did want to talk NBA Finals, though, and And so post your comments. One, that is one, which is, will this finals end in a sweep? I think it will. And two, where do you think LeBron ends up? I mean, I think it's obvious that he has a high level of disdain for the owner, Dan Gilbert. I mean, he went back to the Cavs, even against the disdain that he had for Dan Gilbert. If you saw the video of the Cavs winning the East and, going to the podium for the Eastern Conference Championship trophy, LeBron walked past Dan Gilbert, and it was kind of funny to watch. Like, it's not a secret, right? Like, LeBron doesn't have much respect for Dan Gilbert. And that, coupled with this Cleveland Cavaliers team, is kind of a mess. Just not enough around him to compete for championships. I don't think, and I've said this all along, I think there's a 0% chance LeBron James returns to Cleveland. 0% chance he returns to Cleveland. So the question is, where do you think he's going? John Dyer comments, I'm hoping LeBron sees your awesome backdrops and plays for the Spurs. So, all right. Here are the teams that I think are part of the LeBron James sweepstakes. Again, I think he's not going back to Cleveland. There's no shot at it. So where is he going? The Celtics. I think that's obvious. He could be going to the Celtics. They've got a good balance of quality veterans. Al Horford, Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving. And then good young players. There's also, though, the Kyrie Irving thing, which is kind of funny. But it's easy for the Celtics to just unload that contract, and make room for LeBron, if you will, in both a monetary and also a happiness standpoint. The Rockets, which I've said all along, I think LeBron's going to the Rockets. The Lakers, which seem to be in play because they're the Lakers, and then there's the Paul George thing. So there's that. The Sixers, which we'll get to in a second, and the Spurs. Kind of. So if you followed my show on ESPN San Antonio, throughout the course of the regular season, I thought that there was a pretty good shot that LeBron would end up with the San Antonio Spurs, quite frankly. Because I think at that point we weren't totally sure of the drama, around Kawhi Leonard, and so I think my belief that Kawhi will not stay with the Spurs is basically that's what's kind of governing where I think he'll go, why I think LeBron won't end up with the Spurs. I guess that's the way to say it, right? Like, I think during the regular season, I argued that I thought the Spurs would probably be the best landing spot for LeBron because you've got, a win now type team with Kawhi and LaMarcus Aldridge, and you couple that with the dynamic of Greg Popovich. We know he has a great relationship with Pop. We know he has a tremendous amount of respect for Pop. And, LeBron, in the course of his career, has never played for a coach that's equal to him in a sense of historically great. I mean, Greg Popovich is one of the 3 best coaches in the history of the NBA. I believe he's the greatest coach in the history of the NBA. The other guys that would be in the conversation, obviously, would be Red Auerbach and Phil Jackson. The reason that I put Pop, and reminder, I grew up in Chicago as a Bulls fan, but the reason I put Pop ahead of Red and Phil, one, because Red did it 50 years ago, and the NBA was completely different, and free agency was completely different, and you could argue the same thing about Phil, but like Phil, more to a point, Pop has evolved so much more over the course of his career as a coach from offensive and defensive philosophies than Phil Jackson ever did. I mean, the triangle is something Phil Jackson is synonymous with. And it's great. He won tons of championships. And if you want to go, championship route, then I get it. But for me, Pop's ability to evolve so much is the reason why I think he's the greatest of all time. Calvin Brown from Palm Beach, Florida. What up, Calvin Brown? How are you, buddy? Silver and Blue Nation checking in. Said, what's happening with Alfred Morris? I'll get to that momentarily, but Alfred Morris is a free agent and not on the Cowboys. The Cowboys are pretty set at running back. They've got Rod Smith, who they really like. They drafted Bo Scarborough. They brought back Darius Jackson, who they had in a few years ago. So, I don't think there's room for Alfred Morris, though they liked him, and I think he did well for them. I think the Cowboys at this point are set on at running back with Zeke and Rod Smith, plus they want to run Tavon Austin in the backfield a lot. Plus they have Bo Scarborough, who they drafted. So they're set at running back. All right, so wherever you're watching, thank you for watching. Make sure to post your comments. Andy Lemons chiming in on the Dallas Prospect page says, no sweep, and he's coming to the Lakers. Andy, I disagree with you on both fronts. I'm asking you if you think the finals will end in a sweep. Post your comments. Also, where do you think LeBron's going? Because I think there's a 0% chance LeBron James returns to Cleveland. The prospects that I think he ends up at are either the Celtics, Rockets, Sixers, Lakers, and maybe the Spurs. So I was kind of going through my Spurs stuff on this. So during the regular season, I said on ESPN San Antonio multiple times that I thought LeBron, the best landing spot for LeBron would be the Spurs because, of the pairing of Kawhi and LaMarcus. Plus, you have, the greatest coach in the history of the NBA. And I just made my argument for why I think Pop's the greatest coach in the history of the NBA. He's evolved way more so than the other guys in the conversation. And I'll get to your comment, Mike, in a second here. Also, Chris Leha in the house. What up, Chris? Make sure to hit the share button, by the way, everybody who's watching this. Help a brother out. Hit the share button. Sharing is caring. Also, a reminder that here on Showtime, every day, we will have our fan comment of the day, which means simply that if your comment is decided by me to be the best comment of the day, then you will have a feature of 60 seconds to say whatever you want. You can have a hot take. You can voice an opinion. You can just do shout-outs, whatever you want to do. You get 60 seconds, and we will blast it out on all of our social media feeds. So become the fan of the day. Post your comments, and if your comment makes it as the fan of the day, you get to post your to have a 60-second video shared by our social media pages. All right. So again, I thought that during the regular season, Kawhi Leonard, LaMarcus, and Pop would be enough for LeBron to come here and be a good reason for LeBron to come here. There were even reports, even early on in the season, the Spurs report, like LeBron was thinking about the Spurs. And then those reports seemed to subside. I wonder if LeBron knew something about Kawhi's disdain for the organization and felt like, well, if Kawhi's not going to be there, I'm not going to be there. And I mean, like, that's the ultimate truth here. As Spurs fans that think that LeBron James would come to San Antonio without Kawhi Leonard are delusional. When you look at the other spots that he could go to, LeBron is not going to win a championship in San Antonio with LaMarcus Aldridge and Pop alone. I mean, he needs Kawhi, and that's part of the package. So, I know I heard some were like, well, could they do a sign-and trade with Kawhi to Cleveland? And it's like, no. Why would LeBron gets to decide where he wants to go, and why would he come to San Antonio if he knows he's not going to have one of the best? I mean, Houston's really good. Golden State's really good. The Celtics are. I mean, LeBron, my guess is going to go somewhere where he immediately can compete with Golden State to win a championship and be one of the two best teams in the NBA. And if he comes to San Antonio without Kawhi Leonard, he's not one of the two best teams in the NBA. He's not on one of the two best teams in the NBA. Chris Leha says he comes to San Antonio, he won't have to play 30 minutes every game. He could prolong his career even longer and doesn't have to worry about the defense. Which again, Chris, a good point, and that's something that I used to say too as well. I forgot about that. That Pop would make best use of his, of him not having to play and take on the heavy toll. I mean, every other team LeBron's been on, he's rested and missed games, except for this year where he played 82. But that's, the difference between winning and losing for that organization has been him being on the floor. The Spurs have proven over the years that they can rest their best players and still compete night in and night out. So, that should be a major reason for why LeBron could potentially decide to come to San Antonio. But this kind of all goes back to Kawhi. Like, I don't think Kawhi's coming back to San Antonio. I think, there's too much friction. And again, I think if he is the ultimate decision maker here and his vote matters more so than his uncle or his agent, then there's a good chance he's coming back. But I just think his agent and his uncle will have a major say in where he ends up. And that's why I think he's gonna end up somewhere else. And that's why I think LeBron's not coming to San Antonio, because he's only coming here if Kawhi's here, and I don't know that Kawhi will stay here. Mike Cardenas says 5 games, Golden State loses 1 to boredom. I've heard a lot of people make that argument. I mean, tonight's the night if that's going to happen. I just don't see it happen. I don't know. I just don't see it happening. I think Cleveland had their shot and they missed it. Like, everything had to go right for Cleveland in order for them to win a game in this series, and it did in Game 1. And look, if Golden State duplicates its performance in Game 1 as it does in Game 3, then Cleveland will have a shot to win this series. I just don't see that happening. So that's why I think it's going to be a sweep. But I have heard a lot of people suggest it's a gentleman's sweep, 5 games. LeBron's good enough to win 1, and certainly you'd believe that would be tonight's game, if that is the case. John Dyer says, I still think Pop should lay out all trade options for Kawhi to LeBron and ask if it would, if any would bring him here. I've been on the record multiple times saying I think LeBron goes to the Rockets. And if you're asking me why, it's because there's no better scenario in which LeBron James could win a championship right now. Like, I get the Philadelphia love, but like that's still a young team that has to go and grow and take their lumps. Like, this is when LeBron went to Cleveland, he wanted to trade Andrew Wiggins right away for Kevin Love because he didn't think Andrew Wiggins was ready to win right away. Philadelphia's in a similar boat. Now, Andrew Wiggins hadn't even drafted at that point, but I still think the Sixers are in that same boat. The Celtics are interesting to me, and I can certainly see that. But they're kind of that mix of old and young, and I don't know. Maybe Boston. Boston does make sense to me from a win now standpoint. But I think like if you're putting up Boston to Houston head to head as far as like where would you win now? To me, Houston, and especially because there's just not much of a crowd, and the best case scenario for Houston in this situation happening, James Harden becomes the third option, which is, I think, as we've seen over the years, the best option for him. He kind of disappears a little bit towards the end of a playoff series. So him having LeBron come in, I just think a LeBron James, Chris Paul pick and roll, like that is deadly. That is so deadly. You know it's coming and you can't stop it. So, ultimately that's why I think he ends up with the Rockets. I think the Rockets provide him with the best win now situation. They have a smart enough general manager to make the money work, to figure out how to unload certain contracts and get it to work. I know that multiple outlets are saying, well, they can't make the money work. How can they make the money work? Like, we've seen this happen before with Miami the first time, where it's like, how are they gonna make the money work? Well, and the Celtics, of course, even before Miami and the Big Three, like, players will take less to fill out the bench of a team like Houston if there's a prospect of winning a championship. So, I think in a it's like in an economy or in an environment or in an ecosystem where everything acts the way it's supposed to act, then it's a rightfully so. There's the questions of how are they going to fill out the rest of their roster if they're spending so much of their money on Harden, Chris Paul, and LeBron James, and even Clint Capella if he stays with them, which could still be a possibility. Like, how could they do that? In any other like regulated ecosystem or environment, that makes sense. But this is not that kind of a thing where players that are pretty good players are going to be willing to take less in order to take part on a championship roster. The Lakers are also interesting because it's like, well, they have to make multiple moves in order to make it happen. Paul George has to go there. Maybe Kawhi Leonard gets traded to the Lakers, and maybe that then looks like the attractive destination. I just look at the Lakers and say, if they add Paul George, like, are they better than Houston with LeBron, Paul George, the young players they have? Are they? And if they are, I don't know that they're better than Golden State. To me, I think it's like the Houston with LeBron and their current roster, that's better than Golden State to me. But it's at least an argument. I don't think the Lakers with LeBron and Paul George are better than Golden State. But that's just me. Chris Bennett says Kawhi has been a thorn on LeBron's side. Nemesis. Chris Leha says, plus I saw a report saying Chris Paul wants a max deal, nothing less. True. So does LeBron. But also Chris Paul's been recruiting LeBron. So, I would think, there'd be some they'd give up something in that regard if it meant being able to keep or being able to bring on LeBron. John Dyer says Houston would have to find suckers willing to take those trades to free up money. But yeah, we've never seen, there wasn't any issues with Golden State trying to unload contracts or to make it work with Durant. We've seen this before. Jose Velasquez is chiming in. What up, buddy? How are you? Dude, if Leonard was playing the Rockets wouldn't have beaten us. You talking about this year? Last year? What are you talking about? If Leonard was playing when? John Dyer says Lakers won't even get much better. They lose Randall if they pass out 2 max deals. Leonard and LeBron would be the best scenario. Yeah, but and now Jose, I'm assuming you think that Leonard Kawhi stays with the Spurs. I'm not so certain that that's going to be the case. Again, I think there were rumors about LeBron wanting to come to San Antonio. David Alejandro in the house. Give me the wave. What's up, David Alejandro? How are you, buddy? There were rumors this offseason, at the beginning of it at least, that LeBron was interested in coming to the Spurs. And I think that those rumors sort of started to wane over the rest of the regular season. I think that might be because LeBron understood that there was probably some friction between the Spurs and Kawhi. if Kawhi stays in San Antonio, there's a pretty good chance LeBron comes here. Here's the other thing too: is the luxury tax part. Is a team that takes on LeBron willing to go to spend the luxury tax? I think that is important to LeBron. I don't think LeBron would be willing to go to a team that's unwilling to spend money over the luxury tax. Now, maybe the Spurs are like, fine, come here and we will be willing to spend our luxury tax. But remember, they're going through some inconsistencies with ownership. They had Peter Holt was in charge. Now it's his ex-wife who's in charge. So, that also plays a factor in this as well for the San Antonio Spurs. But I appreciate everybody chiming in. Ultimately, again, I think he ends up in Houston. If Kawhi Leonard stays with the San Antonio Spurs, which I don't believe he will, I'll eat crow if he does, but I don't believe he will, then there's as good a chance as LeBron coming to San Antonio as anywhere else. But, again, I think the favorites are Houston because Houston with LeBron, Chris Paul, and James Harden would be, to me, better than Golden State's Big Three. And it would be, or Golden State's, what do they call them, the Hampton Five. And, again, it's even if you think Golden State's still better, it would be a tremendous series and probably the best thing for the NBA. Chris Bennett says he saw a report yesterday that it's Durant going to the Lakers when he opts out. KD and LeBron in LA. I doubt that happens. I don't see KD leaving Golden State, but maybe. All right. I want to get into the Cowboys coming up here in a little bit. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Showtime on Phantom, Facebook's sports network. Make sure to like the page. Check us out. We're going to be live streaming Game 3 of the finals tonight with TJ Carpenter and Jenna Garcia tonight from Henry's Tavern in downtown Denver. Really entertaining stuff. So while you watch the game, bring up the Phantom page on either YouTube or on Facebook, facebook.com/watchphantom, and watch the game with us and kind of, if you don't enjoy the commentary or you just like different commentary, we're going to be doing a live stream with Jenna Garcia and TJ Carpenter. We've got cool prizes we've got. Check us out tonight during Game 3 of the NBA Finals right here on Phantom. Gabe Froman says 2 super teams would be best for the NBA. Yeah, that's absolutely. The thing, parity's not good for the league. That's the thing that I think, people don't necessarily understand is, this is one of the highest rated finals that they've ever had. And it's not even getting close to the NFL. But so much of that is because there's not parity. It's been the same 2 teams for this is the 4th time. People hate LeBron or love LeBron, and people want to see LeBron beat Golden State. People want to tune in to watch the super teams lose. Or they like to see it. So, again, parity and having different teams every year. There's consistency with narratives and storylines that I think plays into why there's an interest level. And ultimately, I think what's better than what we've seen in the NBA Finals so far would be, if LeBron goes to Houston. But look, this isn't any different than, the NBA at its height had a concentration of power in 2 different places, the Lakers and Celtics, right? So this isn't anything new. You need big stars all being in a couple of places that then play each other in big-time games, and that creates interest. It's not a secret. You don't want, all different kinds of players in all different places. If you look at the ratings and when the NBA's been in its finest and been its most popular, you're talking about a concentration of power in a small amount of places. And by the way, Chris Bennett, good point. There will still be steak, bourbon, and sports tonight. Remember, you can watch a lot of different things at the same time right here on Phantom Facebook's Sports Network. So the New World Order of Sports will be busy tonight. Chris Leah says, talk about the most dramatic year in the history of the Spurs, huh? From players to coach to front office, it's been crazy. It's not even over yet. Offseason will be insane. Yeah, no question about that. All right, so there's the Brian Colangelo story that continues to circle the drain. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN reports that the 76ers ownership group, including CEO Scott O'Neill, met for several hours in New York yesterday evening to discuss whether the findings of a probe into President of Basketball Operations Brian Colangelo necessitate his firing. This, according to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, a decision could be reached as soon as Wednesday, league sources told ESPN. You see the graphic here. This was posted somewhere in the Philadelphia area. The billboard says Woodergate, which, if you're wondering why it says Woodergate, it's because That is how people in Philadelphia pronounce Watergate. But you see a giant collared man, or rather a giant collared person, rather a giant collared shirt with a bird that looks like the logo of Twitter, and it says, "This is not a normal collar. Move on, Sixers. Find a new GM." And that's kind of my point here in all this. Like, why haven't they? What's to decide? Like, how can you keep Brian Colangelo as your GM? Like, Brian Colangelo's been okay. He's been a pretty good GM throughout the course of his career as a general manager in the NBA. Built those those 7 seconds or less Suns teams that were really good. And he drafted Ben Simmons, which, I mean, it's better than drafting Markelle Fultz #1 overall when Jason Tatum's there. But even if it was his wife that made this account and was tweeting this, you still can't keep him. Like, I just don't. The report that came out today from Woj, that's like they're deciding on his fate. They met to talk about this. Like, what's to decide? He's gone. He's got to be gone. How is there any question on whether or not he has to be gone? This makes no sense whatsoever. If this guy or his wife were tweeting negative things about players on the team that he's supposed to be the general manager of, there's nothing to decide here. You go and find another general manager because one of your best players, Joel Embiid, was criticized heavily by either him or his wife, and if it's either or, it's really bad. So, like, what else is there to decide? I really don't understand why the 76ers are dragging their feet on this. Oh, wait, I do. They're a poorly run franchise. That's why. Like, the majority of franchises in pro sports, they're really poorly run, so they really have no idea what they want to do. And for some reason, they feel like saving Brian Colangelo. For what? That roster was, for the most part, built by his predecessor. And he goes and criticizes his predecessor. He defends himself. He criticizes players on Twitter. And you think it's okay to even think about keeping him? Are you out of your freaking mind, 76ers? What are you thinking? They have to decide on his future. They're gonna come together and decide on his future. What? What's to decide? Get rid of him. This guy was criticizing players on your team. If you think LeBron has any chance of coming to Philadelphia, bye, Brian Colangelo, bye. Because he's not coming here if he thinks that the general manager's criticizing players on Twitter from other accounts. That's LeBron's move. By the way, Brian Colangelo does have giant collars. Like, look at these collars. Why does he wear such huge collars? I don't get it. What's with the big collars, Brian Colangelo? Those are big collars. I mean, those are really big collars. I'm Temkin. This is Showtime right here on Phantom, Facebook's Sports Network. Make sure to like the page, hit the like button, and also get notifications for every time we go live. You can see that we're live and check out what we've got going on right here on Phantom, Facebook's Sports Network. All right, so we'll get to the Cowboys here in a moment, but the last thing that I think today is I do 3 things that I think, and I think it's been more than 3, but that's okay. Centers around Dennis Rodman. So, and if you'll bear with me for a moment here, but there we go. Boom. Okay, so Dennis Rodman will be in Singapore for Trump-Kim summit. So this is where we're at now. Okay, so let's just read. NBA star turned Kim Jong-un soulmate. Nice touch there, New York Post. Dennis Rodman will be in Singapore during President Trump's summit with the North Korean dictator next week, the Post has learned. This is why we think the New York Post is one of the best publications in the world, right? Jop Young in the house. What up, Jop? How are you? My mother-in-law is watching. How are you? I just scrolling through the pages to check out the comments. Andy Kai says, "What if he has a normal collar but a really small neck?" I don't think that's the case. Okay, so let's just read through this. The Warren will arrive in the country a day before the June 12th sit-down, and sources said he could even play some sort of role in the negotiations. So, we have the Worm, Dennis Rodman, who, not that there's anything wrong with it, once wore a wedding dress to a bookstore for his book signing of a book that shows him naked on a motorcycle on the cover. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but kind of a colorful character. He also, obviously green hair at different points of his career, purple hair, all different kinds of hair. Basically, his hair was a canvas during his NBA career. So we have that guy who also, and this is no joking matter, has substance abuse issues, or at least has throughout the course of his post-playing career, and probably did during his playing career as well. He is at the forefront of negotiations between a evil dictator and the president, the current sitting president of the United States, who's a character unto himself. And by the way, this is an arguable point. Donald Trump is a WWE Hall of Famer. So you have Dennis Rodman at the peace negotiations, nuclear peace negotiations between North Korea's Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump. That's just blowing my mind. No matter what you think about his presence, one thing's for sure, the ratings will be huge, a source said. Ratings. 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 The war was kind of a disappointment, but boy, do they get good ratings. What a highly rated war. Wow. Quote, a lot of times in situations that involve complex diplomacy, countries like to identify ambassadors of goodwill, and whether you agree with it or not, Dennis Rodman fits the bill. That is true. The zany 6'7" ex-baller who has struck up an unlikely bromance with the pint-sized 5'7" Kim. If he reads that New York Post, he's going to be very angry at you. He's got thin skin and has visited the rogue regime 5 times in the past, took some of the credit for getting the two leaders together. In an April interview with TMZ, Rodman said that Kim didn't understand the president until he gave the North Korean strongman a copy of Trump's ghostwritten book, The Art of the Deal, for his birthday in 2017. I think Kim didn't really realize who Donald Trump was at that time, I guess, until he started to read the book and started to get to understand him. Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un are pretty much the same. Dana Braining, what up, Ari? What up, Dana? How are you? Pretty much the same people, I think that there are probably a lot of Democrats that would agree, but reality disagrees. Kim Jong-un has murdered multiple people. He is a ruthless dictator. Say what you will about Trump, at least he's the president of a democracy. So there's that kind of important distinction between the two, but maybe personality-wise, they're similar. Rodman, this isn't not going well. Quote, I don't want to take all the credit. I don't want to sit here and say, I did this, I did that. That's not my intention, Rodman told the website. My intention was to go over and be a sports ambassador to North Korea so people understand how the people are in North Korea. I think that has resonated to this whole point now. We can read on and on, blah, 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 blah. So, Henry Munoz, what up, buddy? What up? He says he's late, but he's here. Appreciate you saying that. Appreciate you joining us. By the way, hit the share button if you wouldn't mind. Everybody, Henry and everybody else watching this, hit the share button because sharing is caring, and sharing helps us grow the audience, and that's an important thing here. I'll get to the Cowboys here in a moment, but I do want to at least defend Dennis Rodman. So this is up there with some of the craziest, most surprising stories that I've ever written or read. I didn't write the story, and if I did, I probably wouldn't have been able to make my way through it. But this isn't the first time that Dennis and Kim have had a little bit of a relationship. Kim Jong-un likes Dennis Rodman. They have a relationship. They're friends. Which at first seemed ridiculous because it was like, Dennis, do you know who this guy is? He will kill you. He will kill you. He'll lock you up in prison and kill you. That's what he does to people who say things negatively about him. That's what he does to country. Like, that's what he does. That's what his father did. That's what, like, hello? Read a book. Don't even read a book. Read a headline. Literally, you can do the bare minimum, read a headline and say that Kim Jong-un is no good. And yet this whole time he's survived. Amazingly. During the Olympics in Korea, we heard Kim Jong-un state that he'd be willing to go to the table to talk peace with South Korea. This all happened in a post-Rodman North Korea. So, prior to Rodman and Kim Jong-un becoming friends, Kim Jong-un was a ruthless, horrible dictator that killed opponents, was horrible by every stretch of the imagination, and is everything that we stand against in the United States of America from a democratic standpoint. Dennis Rodman goes over there, they spark a relationship. Within that time frame, Kim Jong-un decides to open up potentially peace talks with South Korea to create a united Korea for the first time in 70 years? And now he's got Kim Jong-un to stay, he's going to get rid of his nuclear policy, or rather, during the same time period, Kim Jong-un is talking about getting rid of his nuclear policy, which again was something that was a major fear for Americans and for the globe. And now Trump and Kim Jong-un are going to the table to discuss these things. Dennis Rodman could be in line for the Nobel Peace Prize. And I'm not kidding. I'm being 100% genuine when I say this. I don't know if he's responsible for it, but the timeline adds up. His relationship with Kim's willingness to talk United Korea with South, get rid of nuclear weapons, which everybody was fearful of, and now go to the table with Trump to discuss these things. These aren't things that were happening pre-Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman appears to be a crazy person, and I mean that with the utmost respect for the great Dennis Rodman. I mean, look at him. He just doesn't look like a guy that would traditionally get the Nobel Peace Prize. But he could very well be up for the Nobel Peace Prize. Just saying. We all think that this is the funny, and I made fun of this story from the outset, but these things continue to evolve. Kim Jong-un has 100% changed a lot of the things that he thought about. He's just changed drastically, and this is all in the post-Rodman friendship. So we thought Dennis Rodman being on the Bulls when they won 70 games and won a championship was like the height and epitome of his greatness, of his life. He was featured on Celebrity Rehab. Did not look like he was in good shape. Had horrible substance abuse problems. But my goodness, Dennis Rodman at the forefront of the peace talks with North Korea. Amazing. All right. Again, thanks everybody for joining us right here on Phantom, Facebook's Sports Network. Let's talk Cowboys. It's been long enough. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Showtime on Phantom, Facebook's Sports Network. We talk a lot of Cowboys here, so post your comments, hit the share button. Let's get into this now. Wherever you're watching from, whether it's on the Silver and Blue Nation page, salute to all you folks watching the Silver and Blue Nation page, also the Dallas Prospect, and on the Ari Temkin radio page. Post your comments, hit the share button, do all those things. We're also on Twitch and on YouTube, and as soon as I figure out how that works, that'd be great. Looks like there's somebody watching on Twitch. What up? Forrest Bono and Dre Geek Girl. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate you doing that for us. And post comments. And again, this is your show. So whatever you want to talk about, post your comments, hit the share button wherever you're watching, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. Post your comments and let's get this thing going. All right, so let's talk Dallas Cowboys now. This is my favorite part of the show, by the way. I get to do this. I missed. It's like I get. Yes. All right. John Dyer says maybe Scottie Pippen can negotiate peace in Israel. It's ridiculous. No, Pippen is not a nice guy. He's not looking for peace in Israel, but maybe Dennis Rodman can. That's a great reference, Andy, and maybe even viewed as racist, but I wouldn't say you are, but certainly some people who watch that movie and the way that they showed Team America World Police, showed Asians making the L and R sounds, could be viewed that way. Just saying. But I love Trey Stone and Matt Parker. Trey Parker and Matt Stone, they're geniuses. Anyways, there's been a lot of big stories for the Cowboys and OTAs, as there normally is. David Irving has become, as the Cowboys ratchet up week 3 of OTAs. So if you're new to this, the Cowboys, the NFL has 3 weeks of voluntary OTAs, and then next week will be mandatory OTA, and then they're done until a month and a half from now, when they go to Oxnard, California. No, I know you're not, Andy, but I'm just afraid. I'm not Trey and Matt, so I'm just whatever. It's beside the point. It's really funny. Team America's funny. South Park's funny. Whatever. So they have the final week of voluntary OTAs, and then mandatory minicamps next week, and then they're off for a month until they go to Oxnard, California for training camp, which is awesome. But it's the official dead period of the NFL offseason. The long month and a half. No need to apologize, buddy. Andy. I just didn't want to say it, I guess is the other way to say it. So the big story has been David Irving. So David Irving apparently showed up to the first OTA and he was out of shape. That's what Jason Garrett said. He showed up, he was out of shape. Fat. So that was the big story after the first week of OTAs. He was fat. Then, I guess, we haven't heard much from him, but other than the fact that he didn't participate in the second week of OTAs. Well, he's still not there participating. Clarence Hill, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, posted an article today about this, kind of saying, he came in out of shape, and now, he's players have told him that he's heard from sources. We also heard Mike Fisher on Twitter report the same kind of thing, that David Irving has sort of been in and out of the lineup. In and out of the facility, hasn't really been there much. So he came in out of shape, he left, hasn't been back, I guess is the best way to put it. So now he's being criticized for not being there from all over the place. He took to Instagram to defend himself, and I forgot to pull this up, but it says, I'll read it to you. There's a picture of him, and it's after a sack. So it's like hey, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but I had a lot of sacks. It says, David Irving, I wish the media would tell the truth about why I'm not at OTAs. I wonder if they even know the real reason. There's no football if there is no me. Gotta help yourself before you can help others, right? Just stay tuned for the damn season. Sounds like a personal thing. I wonder if they even know the real reason there's no football if there's no me. Gotta help yourself before you help others, right? Maybe he's dealing with something personally. I don't want to, look, I don't want to sit here and say things about David Irving that are untrue, but I guess the thing that I'm sort of curious about then is why would Jason Garrett say that he was out of shape then? Like, let's say that the real reason David Irving is not with the Cowboys is because he's taking care of some personal matters. Maybe something's not right psychologically. Whatever. Again, I don't want to throw things out there against the wall, but certainly what it seems like is he's got to work on himself before he can help the team. That's what he said. He's got to work on personal things. Why wouldn't Jason Garrett just say that he's not there for personal reasons? That's what I don't understand. Jason Garrett seems to be the guy to defend his players, so basically to say that he wasn't in shape, that basically puts the onus on David Irving for why he's not participating, as opposed to what David Irving is saying, which is the real reason I'm not there is because of something going on personally with me. That's just the most, I guess, confusing thing for me on this is, I mean, if that's true, and these are personal things that he's got to take care of, I guess I just question again why Jason Garrett wouldn't just say he's out for personal reasons. I say all this to say, people that are freaking out about David Irving, stop. This is OTAs. I get it with Zach Martin too, and I think people are willing to give Zach Martin a pass because, this is sort of the first time in Zach Martin's colorful career, decorated career, that he's, not been with the team. He's all pro every year, so he gets a pass. And I do think there is this team building that takes place throughout these OTAs, but I mean, I'm not going to get upset with a player that's not there until it's training camp, even if it's mandatory minicamp. Even if next week he doesn't show up and he gets fined, I still think everything is fine for David Irving, for Zach Martin, for the Dallas Cowboys, period. Is it ideal? Is it what you want? No, but it's not like, I'm telling you, 4 months from now, when the season's underway, we're not going to be like, see, this is because David Irving wasn't at OTAs. Like, we will forget. These are the types of stories that are only big stories because it's literally the only thing out there to talk about with the Cowboys. And I'm not saying it's not a legitimate story. It is. But, I mean, in 3 weeks, there will be nothing to talk about because there will be an intermission between the final, mini camp and training camp. And so at least now there are players there participating in drills and there's a practice going on. And so there's things to talk about. David Irving's not there, so there's legitimately things to talk about. But I just, like David Irving, the way the Cowboys set up their contract with him, the way the Cowboys set up the contract with DeMarcus Lawrence, like it's on them to have big years this year so they get paid. And defensive ends get paid in the NFL. If you penetrate and get a lot of sacks, you're going to get paid big time in the NFL. So, I just ultimately think, that this is not a big story and that the reason people are probably upset about it is probably because of the fact that with Zach Martin, first of all, he's been there more consistently than David Irving, and maybe more important than that. Jop Young says, "Is that Makers in the tumbler?" LOL, just kidding. No, it's coffee. But Jop, tonight at 9:00 Central, Steak, Bourbon, and Sports. It won't be Makers, but it'll be a different variety of whiskeys, so make sure to check it out. Steak, Bourbon, and Sports tonight and every Wednesday night at 9:00 on Phantom Facebook's Sports Network. It's coffee, by the way. Okay, so I don't think the David Irving thing's a big deal. The thing that I'm asking you to comment on is the over-under 9.5 wins for the Cowboys. So post what you think. Over-under 9.5 wins for the Dallas Cowboys this season. I do want to get into this, and let's see if I can do this. All right, boom. Okay, so yesterday, 105 Through the Fan, which is the station that I work for part-time. So you guys should all be checking out 105 Through the Fan, the best station in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the best station for Dallas Cowboys coverage. So let's just make sure the speakers are on and we can hear. All right, so Deion Sanders.
Okay, let's let bygones be bygones. Let's just apologize and say, Dez, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Come on back. You didn't know Jason Witten was getting ready to do this. You didn't know this knucklehead is getting ready to do what he did and got out of the car and run out of the Lamborghini. Who leaves the scene of the crime with a Lamborghini? That means something's foul, okay? That's what you know. Let bygones be bygones. Bring the dude back, and let's move on.
All right, that's prime time. Deion Sanders, who was on 105 to the Fan yesterday with Brian Urlacher. Urlacher. Adrian Size says under. Andy Kai says under. You guys are crazy. Cowboys are going to the playoffs this year. Again, Deion Sanders, if you missed it.
Okay, let's let bygones be bygones. Let's just apologize and say, Dez, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Come on back. You didn't know Jason Witten was getting ready to do this. You didn't know this knucklehead is getting ready to do what he did and got out of the car and run out of the Lamborghini. Who leaves the scene of the crime with a Lamborghini? That means something's foul, okay? That's what you know. Let bygones be bygones. Bring the dude back, and let's move on.
First thing I find hilarious about this is, so Deion Sanders is sitting there with Brian Urlacher, who had literally the exact same thing happen to a teammate of his, Lance Briggs, back in the day. Lance Briggs literally had a Lamborghini that he crashed while drunk, maybe, on the highway. He fled the scene, called it in, and then got arrested for fleeing the scene. So it's funny that he was, like, Urlacher was sitting there the whole time and never said anything about it, but he's actually had a teammate that had literally the exact same thing happen to him. But I digress. That's beside the point. So Deion Sanders yesterday was arguing that the Cowboys should bring back Dez Bryant. They didn't know that Jason Witten was going to retire and step down. They didn't know that Terrence Williams would crash his Lamborghini on the side of the road. Because of that, they should bring back Dez Bryant. Really, Prime? I mean, seriously? Dez Bryant was released, and the first thing that he said to anybody with a microphone was to call out Garrett guys. That he thinks it was Garrett guys that were the reason that he was cut. Let's let bygones be bygones. So a guy that was probably cut reportedly because of the distraction that he was in the locker room, you're just going to say, you know what, we're okay with the fact that you called out our coach and players that are willing to play for the coach. We're straight. By the way, come on back, and we're happy to have you complain about your targets, and literally every time you've got single coverage, we want you to be in Dak's ear telling him, hey Dak, I'm single coverage 1-on-1, get me the ball, only for you to drop the ball, which we saw consistently down the stretch of the season last year. Save your arguments. No, don't bring back Dez. No. The Cowboys are fine. Even if they knew that Jason Witten was going to retire, which I think they did, even if they knew that Terrence Williams was going to do this is not going to change the way they feel. Primetime, you're nuts. How much are we overvaluing where Dez Bryant is in his career? He's still unsigned. How good do you think Dez Bryant is if he's still unsigned a month and a half after being released? Come on, Prime. Come on. Do you watch the games? Seriously, are you just thinking Dez is as Dez was 3 years ago? Because the statistics bear out a different truth. Dez Bryant has not had a 1,000-yard receiving season since he got paid. He's had injuries. That's the reason he hasn't. Are you betting that he's going to get back to that? No. It made no sense to bring him back in the first place. So cutting him was the right move. Cutting him was the right move, independent of Witten, independent of Terrence Williams, independent of anything else. Cowboys made the right move. Adrian Stein says, bring in Ocho Cinco. Bring in T.O. Yeah, exactly. Bring T.O. back. T.O. is even trying to say to the 49ers, hey, by the way, if you need Jimmy G, you want deep threat, I'm still available. But here's the thing I'll keep harping on. The Cowboys have a number one. He's Zeke Elliott. He's the guy that they're going to feed 60% of the time, 70% of the time. And that's what they should be doing. So they can't have Dez Bryant in their ear all the time because he's got one-on-one coverage. They can't have Dez Bryant talking about Garrett guys in the locker room. They can't have that. And the reason I think the Cowboys are going back to the playoffs and the over-under at 9.5, I'm having them over, is because of that. It's because they've got a below-average receiving core from a personnel standpoint, but they're going to fit perfectly what the Cowboys are trying to do, which is run exclusively through Zeke Elliott, their offense, and then use play action and the zone read off of him to get guys open down the field and get guys open underneath and get guys open all over the field. Their run will set up their pass. That's what they want to be. That's why they consistently used first and second round draft picks along their offensive line. Think about it. Travis Frederick, Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, all first round picks. Connor Williams, who's going to be the starter at left guard, second round pick. Lyle Collins, I know he was undrafted, but he was supposed to be a first round pick. You basically have 5 first round picks, and Connor Williams was graded as a first round pick along your offensive line. The reason you did that is because you're a run first team. So you can't have Dez Bryant waving his arm in the air every time he gets single coverage. We know Dez. We're fine. We're running the football 60% of the time, 70% of the time. That's why I think the Cowboys go over under 9 wins. Are they going to be great on offense? Yes. Are they going to be great on defense? No, but I would argue they don't need to be great on defense. They just need to be great on offense. All right, I'm Ari Temkin. This is Showtime right here on Phantom, Facebook's Sports Network. Every day at noon. Appreciate you checking this out. Make sure to hit subscribe on the show page. That way you get notifications every single day when we go live. Also, a reminder, we've got 2 great shows tonight. TJ Carpenter and the wonderful Jenna Garcia are going to be live from Henry's Tavern in Denver, downtown Denver. So if you're in the Denver area, go check them out. But if you're not, make sure to stream the game with them tonight, starting at, tip-off at 8. So tip-off at 8, about 7:45, they're going to have contests, lots of fun stuff to play along with, so go check them out. It's going to be TJ Carpenter, Jenna Garcia tonight from Henry's Tavern on Phantom, so make sure to stream them during the game, a little game companion. Also, 9 o'clock, Ari Temkin, Jeremy Mandel at Steak, Bourbon, and Sports. So all that tonight right here on Phantom, Facebook's Sports Network. The Digital Media's Sports Network. Make sure to check out all of the great videos, live and otherwise, that we have. Coming up next, it's TJ Carpenter. It's noon o'clock with TJ Carpenter. Coming up next.